Yeah. So why Christianity rather than any other religion?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it looks like the main competitors are going to be Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Why is that? Well, the other ones are sort of Buddhism. I think of as sort of not theist, and it's just sort of like a way to try to think about reality that I suppose it has like some supernatural elements. Hinduism, I guess, I'm just not. It doesn't seem like an open possibility to me. But if you're wondering like why, for instance, Christianity over Islam, um, here's why not Islam. I mean, I think most of it comes from one person, that is Muhammad. So he has to have been a genuine prophet and been genuinely receiving these sorts of messages. And he couldn't have been a fraud. Was he a fraud? Well, I guess I'm inclined to think that he was. I hope I don't get in trouble on the internet for this.
No, hopefully not.
Okay, yeah, why is that? Well, he said a lot of the things that he said revealed a lot of things in the Quran. But then he went on to kind of do the kinds of things that standard cult leaders do. That is, he went to, led lots of military campaigns to try to conquer lots of things. So he got lots of worldly success and lots of worldly power. He had he had multiple wives. He had used his position to have some sex, which is the kinds of things that lots of cult leaders do. So that's the kind of stuff that sort of like tips me off that, look, this guy has to have nailed it, but it looks like what he's doing is like what a lot of cult leaders do. That is doing those sorts of things that I just described. Whereas Christianity and the Jewish tradition have lots of people who are giving revelation. So it's not just like coming through one person. Of course, Jesus is a crucial part of this, but it's not just his testimony. I mean, there's been a long history of people who are saying they're getting revelations from God. Many of these people are telling people uncomfortable truths. That is, that the Jewish prophets are telling the Jewish people, hey, the reason you got conquered is because you guys fell away. You guys sinned. It's your fault. And that's precisely not the kind of thing you would say if you were trying to gain for yourself status and influence and power. You wouldn't like tell the people you're going to that they're responsible for their suffering. They were widely rejected. The Jewish prophets were widely rejected, so not taken on, so they just, as a matter of fact, didn't gain lots of worldly success. People like Jesus also were killed. He didn't, as a matter of fact, like try to set up a big, earthly regime where he had lots of power. For the most part, he remained celibate his whole life. So he's not doing the characteristic things that those people do. He also went around to the Jewish leaders and told them that, guys, you are screwing up big time. And so he didn't like try to take power within the Jewish system, and quite the opposite. He tried to say, look, you guys are messing up big. And the people who testified to the resurrection of Jesus were, for the most part, women. The people who followed him were, for the most part, like these not, high status people. So the reason the women sort of testifying to the resurrection of Jesus is important is because that's precisely the kind of thing you wouldn't make up if you were trying to make up a story. You would say, because women were widely discredited at that time, so you would put it in the mouth of somebody very credible if you were going to make it up. And you wouldn't say that the crucial follower of Jesus, Peter, denied Jesus 3 times. If you were just making it up, you would say that Jesus' closest confidant, Peter, like had faith the whole time. He never doubted a thing. The disciples, you would not say, as the Gospels continually do, that these guys didn't understand, that they didn't see what Jesus was on about. You would not present them as incompetent. You would present them as hyper competent. The disciple or the Gospels present them as pretty incompetent. That's precisely what you wouldn't expect if they were just making it up. So it looks like the gospel narratives and all the stuff surrounding Jesus is precisely the kinds of stuff that you would see if you weren't making it up, and it was real. Now, is it possible that these people are still making it up all the same? Yes, of course it's possible. But what we have to deal with in the real world is limited evidence. So given the limited evidence that I have for and against Christianity, it seems to me that it's more likely true than false. So when I say that I'm a Christian, I don't mean that I'm certain. There's no doubt. There's just no way any other view could be true. I'm just saying it's the best supported view, and I have to go with the best supported view I have. That's Christianity as far as I can see.
So to that, one could fairly come to you and be like, hey, hold on a second, professor, right? Are you saying that Muhammad, yes, he did wage war with, every unbeliever he found on his way, and he tried to make them and force them in a way to actually become and submit to the will of Allah. That is true, right? But you can't come here and say that Islam is the only religion in the world that is actually, waged war in the name of God. You can see in the Old Testament, right? God himself commanded the Israelites to wage war against the Canaanites, right? And they overtook their land. What they call the promised land was actually already occupied by a bunch of other people, right? Even Jesus himself. All right. Let's say that, when he was here on earth, right, he preached the gospel of, of peace and love and just the beauty of God, and then his mightiness and his love and mercy for everybody. But he did say that he will return to wage war against the forces of evil. That sounds a little bit belligerent right there. So why would you not, consider all those important objections against Christianity? What would you say to that?
Great question. Yeah. So the reason I cited the war stuff is to try to say, should we believe this Muhammad guy? So I'm trying to make an epistemic point. Like, how likely is it that this guy was telling the truth? And what I want to suggest is he has all the hallmarks of the kinds of swindlers, religious swindlers that we already know about, the kind of person who would pursue multiple sexual partners and worldly power and success. My criticism of Muhammad wasn't like God would never, engage in violence or never command someone to be violent. That wasn't what I was trying to say. I wasn't saying that's why you shouldn't believe Muhammad. I was trying to say, no, the reason you shouldn't believe in Muhammad is because he did the kinds of things that we already know swindlers do. Jesus did precisely not the kinds of things that we know swindlers to do. That is to say, my kingdom is not of this world. I'm not trying to take over this world. Going around saying, hey, you guys know the 10 commandments that you really love? Guess what? They're even harder than that. You've heard it said that you shouldn't murder. I tell you, you shouldn't even be angry with a man. You've heard it said that you shouldn't commit adultery. I tell you that you shouldn't even look lustfully after a woman. He's telling them like really hard things and saying like it's way harder than you would expect. He's like really ramping up the demandingness of the religion in a way that you wouldn't expect if he was a mere swindler. So the point about the violence in Muhammad isn't to say like no religion will ever have any violence involved in it. It's just to say, looks like the leader, the guy who we're supposed to trust, who has got all the revelation. I mean, all of the Quran comes from the revelation of Muhammad. I'm trying to say, it looks like probably he didn't get this revelation, that in fact he was making it up. Or, I mean, there's always this other hypothesis, which is something like a demon and sort of influencing him or something like that. But in any case, it's not a legit person. And that's all I wanted the violence to be doing, not to say, no religion that has violence in it is legit.